Police University begins by showing Detective Dongman infiltrating a gambling gang to catch an illegal gambler known as Yellow Sweet. However, Dongman does not have enough gambling skills to meet Yellow Sweet's expectations, so he loses. Yellow Sweet gets angry and throws Dongman onto the table, making Dongman run away. Meanwhile, at the Juno Arena, Sunho, who is a hacker, is in the technician section. He intends to change the screen's spotlight so that his brother, Sungboom, can confess his love to the girl he loves, Eunji. He hacks into the tournament system and controls the camera to focus on Eunji as Sungboom requests. At that time, Sunho hears a girl named Kangi arguing with her coach because of her injury. Despite her injury, Kangi still wants to compete, no matter the outcome. Kangi's passionate words are enough to catch Sunho's attention and encourage him to find his dream. One time, instead of focusing the camera on the girl Sungboom likes, Sunho is fixated on Kangi, who is competing. This immediately causes chaos when the security guards try to arrest him. Sunho runs into the arena and collides with Kangi. He is entirely captivated by Kangi's charisma. Kangi then realizes that Sunho is the one who did all this and throws Sunho hard. Dongman returns to the police station safely and confides in Detective Park Chuljin about Yellow Sweet. He is said to be the leader of Casino VIP, but he turns out to be just an ordinary thug. At night, Sunho remembers the past when he was young. His parents died, and Taekil, Sungboom's father, asked him to go home with him. Since then, Sunho has lived with Taekil, who has been considered a parent to him. The next time, when meeting with the homeroom teacher, Sunho reveals that he does not have a dream career and only plans to apply to universities that offer scholarships or have dormitories. When seeing this young man's situation, his teacher sighs and suggests he become a police officer. The next day, Sunho sees Kangi's latest posts, on the way to prep school. Seeing something in her photo, he heads to the Preparatory Academy or the Korean National Police University. He sees Kangi and her friends leaving the academy. Sunho then hides behind a van. Kangi notices this, and he immediately runs. Later, Sunho prints out the KNPU application form after deciding to apply. At 11 p.m., the alarm goes off, and he logs into the blackness as Yoon talks to his internet friend Bird. He sends the online account tracking program Bird requested, unaware that Bird is Dongman disguised as a college student. Chuljin informs Dongman that online gamblers are making a sneaky move, utilizing the tracking device planted earlier. While on their way, Dongman's car collides with Sungboom's car, accompanying his father. While at the hospital, Chairman Choi reprimands Dongman for his reckless actions. He blames Dongman for causing civilians to be injured and for failing to uncover online gambling. Sunho is shocked to learn that his father has stage 1 prostate cancer. His father can undergo surgery, but it will cost 7 million won. So Sunho and Sungboom ask the landlord for a loan, although he is willing to lend them money, but his wife refuses. While feeling confused, Sunho immediately gets an idea when he hears the news reporting an illegal cryptocurrency gambling site. They plan to hack the crypto accounts of the bad guys who run this gambling site. However, there is hesitation because it will get him a prison sentence. However, Sungboom presses enter and 7 million won is transferred to their accounts. The double hack alerts the site operators that something is wrong, so they close all accounts on the site. Of course, this also makes Dongman's plan to infiltrate or catch this illegal online gambling fail. As a result, Captain Choi is furious because every trace of the site and the records have been erased, and the years the team spent on this case have now been wasted. Captain Choi tells Dongman he will be suspended and transferred to another department. He is upset because the hack disrupts their operations. Sunho and Sungboom hand over the money to the doctor, and they leave it to the nurse to make sure his father's cancer is completely removed. The nurse realizes his father is furious, but Sungboom says his youngest son will take care of it. The father is angry, making Sunho apologize for the stage he put on. Meanwhile, Dongman has returned to work. He is sure that the perpetrator can be traced through his account number. Dongman wonders how they managed to hack the site so quickly but still wants to imprison them. One day, Sunho is with Sungboom and his father. They are approached by Chuljin and Dongman, who ask them to come to the police station. They have to be investigated for stealing money from an illegal gambling site. At the police station, they are told that they will be sentenced to 3 years in prison for violating the information and communication law. Suddenly, Taekil appears and prostrates himself, begging the police to spare his sons. Dongman helps the man stand up and gently tells him not to protect his 2 sons by kneeling. Then Dongman tears up the sentence statement for Taekil and lets them go but warns them never to appear in front of him again. Chuljin is worried because this means Dongman will be removed from the team without a doubt. Later, Sunho prepares for a recruitment interview at the police university. He is surprised by Kangi, who approaches him. She asks Sunho if he has followed her to this school too. Sunho says it is his dream to become a police officer. Kangi smiles as Sunho wishes him good luck. Next, Kangyi goes through a series of tests and passes with an A+. Then Sunho is called into the interview room and is surprised by the presence of Detective Dongman as the examiner. It is revealed that Dongman has been placed in the university to teach as a professor as a form of punishment for his actions in defending Sunho. Then, Dongman openly tells Sunho that he is not worthy of being a police officer and that he should reconsider his dream. But Sunho is still allowed to complete his interview. Kangyi exits the building after the last interview. Unexpectedly, she sees her mother outside the building. The woman covers her hands with a towel because her hands are handcuffed. It turns out that Kangyi's mother has been arrested on charges of illegal gambling. The woman is angry with Kangyi, so she unconsciously moves her hand, and the towel covering her hands falls to the ground, causing the students and parents to look at them. The woman gave Kangyi a gold ring and asked her to sell it when the price of gold went up. The woman, usually called Mrs. Ojanja, went to the police car and prepared to leave. At that time, Sunho stood before Kangyi and tried to protect her. He said it would only take 3 seconds, and it would pass. Sunho tried to make Kangyi stop being sad when people passed by and stared at her. On the day of the announcement, Sunho was finally accepted into the police academy. During dinner, Sunboom's family received a draft call. As they prepared to leave, Sunho gave his bank book to Sunboom and said he should use this money wisely. This money came from Sunho. He hacked the gambling site again and took 5 million won this time. Next, Sunho arrived at the academy and prepared to undergo education. He prepared to pass the final exam but was very surprised when he saw that Dongman was the professor handling his training. The training began by forming several teams. Kangyi and Minkyu immediately raised their hands to become team leaders. Dongman would choose the leader of Squad 3. Sunho was appointed as the team leader. Team 3 always needs to improve during the training, so they are in last place, which prevents them from getting dinner. Some team members start to talk badly about Sunho as their team leader. Unbeknownst to them, Sunho hears this, which makes him feel guilty. The next day, the academic candidates will undergo training by walking squats for 15 minutes in the mountains. There are 14 minutes and 44 seconds left when the training is going on. Byung-tae can't take it anymore, but Sunho asks him to keep walking. When approaching the finish line, Sunho pushes Byung-tae to enter the finish line, but the clock shows 15 minutes and 2 seconds, so Sunho's team receives another penalty. Sunho is thoughtful when Kangyi sits beside him and gives him a drink to cheer him up. Kangyi advises him to try to be himself and work harder. At night, Byung-tae calls Junuk and Sunho to eat ramen. Sunho tries to stop them, saying that the rules prohibit eating because they have lost. However, Byung-tae and Junuk insist, so they eat together. The problem came when the officers entered. Before being caught by the patrol officers, Sunho hid Byung-tae and Junuk's whereabouts, so Sunho received the punishment alone. While Sunho was serving his punishment, Dongman appeared. Sunho tried to explain that he would fix all the problems he had done, but Dongman did not easily believe the young man. Dongman knew that Sunho had stolen 5 million won for Sunboom. Sunho was very surprised because he had been caught red-handed again. So this young man prostrated himself while apologizing to Dongman. But Dongman didn't care and considered Sunho unworthy of being a police officer. When Dongman left Sunho, he immediately received a call from Chuljin. Chuljin told Dongman that the Yoon account's owner was Sunho, his offline enemy. Of course, this surprised Dongman. At that time, Sunho approached Dongman and promised that he would make his third team rank first. He promised to leave this academy himself if he couldn't do it. The next time, the final match would be held, but the second team led by Kangyi would only participate in this fight if they were always ranked first. Sunho's team will face Minkyu's team. Sunho is determined to show and prove his commitment to win. He dares to ask Dongman for help even though Dongman considers Sunho an enemy. Dongman spends the whole night looking for a way to help Sunho. The next day, Sunho meets Dongman in his office to research what strategy he could get from Dongman. Dongman needs a plan. He only asks Sunho to find out who is the weakest in his team. In addition, Dongman insults Sunho, saying that Sunho should wake up from his dream. An angry Sunho asks if dreaming of a miracle is wrong. He also tells Dongman not to talk long if he only wants to bring him down. At night, Sunho goes online under the name Yoon to talk to Bird about what he's going through. Of course, Dongman as Bird feels disturbed when he gets an online conversation notification. Dongman as Bird receives a message from Yoon that he doesn't think he can survive in the academy because it's not easy. Dongman replies to Yoon's chat. He tries to convince him that he believes Yoon can do well. The next day, the fight will be held with a 1-hour time limit. Dongman sends the message that whoever raises the opponent's flag first is the winner, but what's more important than winning is that no one gets hurt. In that match, the fight was fierce until Sunho's team won. However, the happy did not last long after a student was found injured. Finally, they had to move to the hospital immediately because of this incident. Because of this incident, Sunho felt that he could not lead others well. Dongman motivated the young man and shared his bad experiences. A moment later, a patient made a commotion in the hospital. Sunho immediately saved a nurse who was being held hostage while Dongman quickly calmed down the perpetrator of the commotion. The next time, all prospective students are gathered to announce who will be accepted or passed. Dongman tells them that all of them have passed. Of course, this makes Sunho feel happy like the others. Sunho approaches Kangi and reveals the reason he entered the police university is because of Kangi. Sunho thinks Kangi has motivated him to find his dream. Of course, this statement surprised Kangi. A few moments later, Minkyu congratulates Sunho on today's victory. Sunho also congratulates him. Finally, the day of the 41st Police Academy commemoration ceremony takes place. All the parents are present, including Takil, Sunho's father. Takil is proud of Sunho. One night, Sunho chases someone he believes is the owner of online gambling. He contacts Dongman, but Chuljin sees a black shadow that hits Chuljin's head until he falls. Dongman becomes anxious, but the criminal breaks Chuljin's cell phone. Dongman, who panics, immediately goes to see Sunho. He asks Sunho for help and tells Sunho that he owns the Bird account. He asks Sunho to help him dismantle online gambling because he is the one who can help him. This certainly surprised Sunho, but he refused the request. The next day, Dongman visited the hospital to visit Chuljin and talk to Captain Choi on the hospital bench. Dongman asked the captain to pull him and make him back as a detective immediately, but Captain Choi said that the documents had been prepared. Dongman told Captain Choi that he thought one of the students at the police academy might be involved with an illegal gambling site. He wanted to investigate something at the police academy that might be involved with the online gambling case. However, Choi dismissed Dongman's words as nonsense. They couldn't realize that a man was watching them from a distance as they talked. At the police academy, a war of nerves occurs between Sunho and Minkyu. Because they like the same person, Kangi, Minkyu reveals that he has liked Kangi much earlier than Sunho. 2 years ago, Minkyu came to watch the trial, and at that time, Kangi was a witness who came to accuse her mother of gambling with her gang. Kangi did not tolerate her mother's actions. She still followed the law and wanted to punish the criminals, whoever they were, even if it was her mother. Rumors are spreading among the children that Kangi's mother is a convict, so it becomes their talk. Kangi's book was crossed out with the writing that she was the daughter of a criminal and was asked to leave school. Kangi got the book and threw it away, only it was about Sunho. When Sunho picked it up, he was sure it was Kangi. Jamak showed a video of Kangi and her mother's meeting the next time. Sunho entered the break room and checked the video. In the comments column, it was written that Kangi's mother was a criminal with 4 felonies. And if parents like that raised Kangi and became a police officer, and public trust in the police would decrease. Baki approaches an angry Kangi and gives her ice cream to calm her down. However, while they are talking, the video has been taken down. Kangi wonders who did this. When Kangi returns to her desk, the book she threw earlier is lying on the desk. Kangi sees the sticker and smiles when she realizes Sunho did this for her. Dongman is hurrying on an investigation mission and Sunho follows him. As a result, the two of them approach someone who hands Dongman a USB containing a black box recording related to Chuljin. Dongman checks the USB he was given and sees the video. They analyze the video and get the car model and license plate number. The next day at the academy, Byung-tae, Jungkook, and Sunho join the judo group. Jungkook says that he has sent the photos that Sunho asked for. When Sunho checks the images one by one to find out who uploaded the pictures of Kangi and her mother, he finds that the photos were taken from the dorm lobby. He believes that the perpetrator is Songsu. Sunho approaches Songsu, but Songsu tries to avoid it. Using a trap talk technique, Songsu finally confesses. Songsu says he did this to join the student council, considering that only 2 seats are left. If he does this, he will get rid of Kangi. Kangi goes to the student council room and resigns to apply, then asks for her form to be returned. Meanwhile, Dongman runs to the hospital when he hears Chuljin wake up. Dongman asks if Chuljin remembers the face of the criminal. However, Chuljin needs clarification. The doctor tells them that Chuljin is suffering from psychological shock and dissociative amnesia. Dongman exits the car at night and walks towards the police station when he sees Professor Hyapul driving out. Dongman chases the car that Hyapul is driving because its model is the same as the vehicle Dongman is looking for. During the chase, the car slowly leaves the police station. Dongman stops chasing, and he is surprised to see Sunho behind him. Sunho offers to work with Dongman in a joint investigation. The next time, Professor Hyapul and Haisu walk down the hallway and talk. Dongman deliberately trips Hyapul to check the foot size on the sole of Hyapul's shoe. It turns out that the man's shoe size is 28.5 millimeters. Professor Hyukpil says that there is something he tripped over, but Dongman ignores the situation and says that time is a man's life. Hyukpil meets Sunho and asks him to slow down Hyukpil's time in the parking lot so that Dongman can check Hyukpil's car. When the mission is carried out, Sunho chases Hyukpil and asks various questions. However, Hyukpil, an expert at reading facial expressions, knows Sunho has lied and wants to slow down time. When he arrived at the parking lot, Hyukpil saw Dongman trying to open his car window using a coat hanger. This, of course, surprised Hyukpil. Dongman hid the tool and asked Hyukpil what he was doing on March 2nd at 9 p.m. when he passed by 39 Gil-songro Street. Hyukpil refused to answer and the two of them argued. However, it was immediately stopped by Hizo, who appeared and stopped them both. After Hyukpil left, Dongman approached Sunho and blamed Sunho for being unable to carry out his duties properly. At the same time, Dongman received a phone call from the police station. He went to see team leader Choi, who was angry because Dongman had asked to issue a warrant for prosecution related to Chuljin's case. Dongman asked Detective Choi to record Chuljin's communication device. Captain Choi angrily told Dongman not to embarrass his teammates again and endanger his team. Of course, this made Dongman speechless, apologized, and then left. Dongman remembered his fiancée named Eunju in the past. Eunju, Dongman's fiancée, was also a detective. One day, Eunju and Dongman walked together. At this moment, Dongman promises to surprise Chairman Choi by giving him their wedding invitation at the dinner party tomorrow. However, unfortunately, Eunju, who was investigating illegal gambling, died in a car accident. At this time, Dongman talks to Sunho. Dongman said that the cybercrime unit found a new illegal gambling site that accepts cryptocurrency. In the investigation with the Dongman team, they found a large company that operates both online and offline. That's why he and Chuljin investigated this case with hard work. The next day, Hyukpil came to Dongman and gave him his USB black book. Next, Dongman and Sunho checked the video. Dongman told Sunho to check further whether the video had not been tampered with or edited. Chairman Choi visited Dongman when the man was alone in the room. It turned out that Captain Choi revealed that he knew Dongman would marry Eunju but pretended not to know all this time. Then Captain Choi handed over Chuljin's cell phone communication data and showed one odd number. The captain warned Dongman to be careful. It turned out that Sunho heard their conversation from behind the door. Afterwards, Sunho went to the room to look for an article about Eunju, Dongman's ex-fiancée. He found an article stating that Eunju died in a car accident. Then Sunho reported to the document that there was nothing strange about Hyukpil's car dashboard video, because the time spent in the car had not been manipulated. Dongman told Sunho they had to go to the fishing spot Hyukpil had visited. When they go to the fishing spot, they check the CCTV to confirm Hyukpil's alibi that he was at the fishing spot on the night of the incident. At that place, Dongman finds a footprint left behind with a number 285mm and says the size is the same as Hyukpil's. He believes Hyukpil is the perpetrator, but Sunho believes that it is impossible because the time and events of the incident do not match Hyukpil's alibi. The next day, Dongman meets Hyukpil to apologize for his accusations. Next, the briefing for the 2022 Police University freshman entrance exam will be held. Kangi guides the high school students around the campus. After the briefing session, students such as Kangi, Haisu, and Dongman gather with their members. The students are punished for drinking and playing games. While the senior student named Nare drinks, she reveals that she wants to compete in judo every night with Sunho. This makes Kangi jealous and screams, causing everyone to fall silent for a moment. However, Kangi reasons that Sunho has stepped on her foot. Kangi escapes from the situation and pulls Sunho out of the room. Drunk Sunho makes Kangi have to help him get back to the university. They get a significant threat when the fierce officer patrolling the hallway starts chasing them. The officer doesn't like it if male and female students are together at night like now. Then Kangi and Sunho hide in the room. The officer opens the door but finds a drunk Professor Hiso sleeping on the chair. This makes the officer angry and annoyed because Hiso always acts like this. Meanwhile, the door to Kangi and Sunho's room opens, making them scared. However, it was only Minkyu. Not long after, Byumtae and Junuk help them escape the dangerous situation. The next day, Dongman visits the owner of the Gossy Bear, Professor Go Dokbae, a high school professor. Dongman intends to check the CCTV. Dongman secretly sees Go Dokbae's shoe size, which is also 285mm, and begins to be suspicious of him. Go Dokbae returns and then shows Dongman the CCTV. Dongman sees the taxi number that Chuljin is riding in. Dongman meets the taxi driver, who says that Chuljin didn't tell him where he wanted to go, so the driver took him to a fishing spot. Chuljin asks to stop and vomits. Dongman asks why Chuljin went to the police university. The driver says it was a call from Godokbae because he is their regular customer. Later, Dongman reveals Professor Godokbae's personal information, which Detective Joe sent to Sunho. Godokbae was charged with operating an illegal gambling house 10 years ago on special assault charges. In addition, Godokbae has a foot size of 285 millimeters. This makes Dongman and Sunho decide to investigate. They arrive at the Gossy Bear and make a bait throw first. Dongman asks Sunho if he has completed his program. Sunho loudly says that his program will be completed and they will catch the perpetrator. The caller who contacted Chuljin and the laptop are in the room. That night, Sunho visits Professor Dongman's lab. Dongman says that the school will be empty during the sports festival, so the perpetrator must have appeared that day. Dongman gives Sunho a smartwatch that is connected to his laptop. Dongman and Sunho are on the same team at the sports festival the next day. After practice, they sit on the playground. At that time, the smartwatch beeps, indicating activity in the dormitory. However, they find Byumtae touching Sunho's laptop when they get there. Dongman scolds Byumtae for touching the laptop and messing up their plan. The next day, Sunho goes to get the team uniform. The senior who distributed the uniform in Kangi came to get the team uniform. It turns out they are on the same team. As they walk, Sunho promises to win the match so they can get a leave benefit for Kangi. This, of course, makes Kangi ask the reason. Sunho says he wants to see his father after accompanying Kangi to watch her mother's trial. So for that, he has to get a special ticket. Kangi is immediately fascinated by Sunho's words and rushes away because she is embarrassed by the young man. The next day, when the match is about to start, Dongman sees Godokbae in the arena, and he throws away his suspicions about Godokbae. During the last fight, it is a relay race. Narei and Kangi are the first runners, while Minkyu and Sunho are the previous runners. When the fight starts, a beat from a smartwatch is heard. Sunho looks at Kangi and remembers the promise he made with Kangi and what Dongman said. Of course, this puts him in a dilemma. However, Sunho decided to leave the arena and ran towards the dorm. Dongman was shocked to see Sunho running away and ran to the dorm. All the students, including Kangi, were shocked by Sunho and Dongman's behavior. They looked around the room and were shocked to see a photo frame with broken glass on the table. Meanwhile, Chuljin stopped Dongman. Dongman was shocked and asked what Chuljin was doing there. Chuljin explained that he was assigned as a professor at the police academy. Sunho returned to the gymnasium and tried to explain his reasons to Kangi, but Kangi just left. Kangi was upset because Sunho had caused them to lose. While in the room, Minkyu approached Kangi and gave her a special ticket. In addition, Minkyu told Kangi that he liked her. Sunho saw this incident, which made him jealous, and he decided to leave. Sunho visits Dongman with an upset face about what happened that day. However, at that time, Dongman's phone vibrates and falls to the floor. Dongman finds a tapping device under the table when trying to get his phone. Dongman tells Sunho that this is a homemade tapping device with a communication range of up to 3 kilometers, leading to Godokbae's Gossip Bear place. Sunho asks Dongman to be patient and restrain himself, but while they argue, the tapping device they hold slips from their hands and falls on the road. While they argue loudly, the professor's car runs over and destroys the tapping device, leaving them devastated. Inside the room, Sunho meets Kangi and asks why he ran away during the running race. Sunho lies about having an unbearable stomachache. Dongman then meets Professor Siu Sanghak and asks for his help. He shows him the TV remote he brought from Godokbae's shop and his laptop. He urges Professor Sanghak to investigate whether the fingerprints on the remote match the fingerprints left on the laptop. Dongman also asks Professor Sanghak to give special tickets to all students, regardless of whether they won or lost the competition. The next day, the students received special tickets and prepared to go out. All the students got on the Seattle bus and left, returning to their homes. Meanwhile, Sunho visited Dongman. He expressed his suspicions about Chuljin, who appeared during the previous competition. Dongman asked Sunho to give him his cell phone and deleted his contact information from Sunho's. Dongman broke up with Sunho so that the young man would no longer have to be involved in this case. While Dongman and Chuljin were having coffee together, Dongman carefully placed the plastic cup Chuljin drank into his bag to compare his fingerprints with those on the laptop. Sunho decided to attend the trial of Kangi's mother. In court, his mother admitted to gambling but denied that she opened a gambling business. Janja was hysterical and always protested, and Kangi began to feel annoyed by her mother's attitude. Minkyu saw the anxiety on Kangi's face and asked her to leave, but Sunho pulled her hand and asked her to stay in the room to ensure her mother was telling the truth. During the trial, Janja stood up and told the judge that she had gambled and accepted the punishment. However, she swore on her daughter's behalf that she had never created an online gambling site. Sunho thought of something when he saw the Gamble Money logo on the gambling betting site that Janja claimed to have created. The logo looked like the logo he saw when he hacked the illegal gambling site. After the trial was over, Kang-hee talked to Sun-ho outside. Kang-hee said that her mother did not lie during the trial, and they made up. The next day, Kang-hee and Sun-hoon went to the police academy. Sun-ho suddenly told Kang-hee that he would catch the real culprit in her mother's case. He continued by saying he was working with Dongman on a joint investigation. The reason he ran away during the sports match was because of the investigation into this illegal gambling site, and he suspected that this case was related to Kang-hee's mother's case. Dongman meets Professor Sang-hak, who says that the fingerprints on the laptop came from a plastic cup, not from the remote. This statement reveals that the fingerprints came from Chuljin, not Professor Go-dokbae. Sun-ho comes to Dongman and tells them that they will finish the investigation. At the same time, Chuljin also comes to Dongman. So the three of them go out for a drink together. Dongman asks Sun-ho for a reason and speculates that he thinks Chuljin is the culprit. When Sun-ho asks Chuljin a question, Chuljin gets angry. Dongman takes Chuljin to a corner and asks why he touched Sun-ho's laptop. Chuljin tries to lie, but Dongman realizes the lie in Chuljin's expression. Chuljin leaves and gets into a taxi with the same driver the day he passes out. The driver throws his cell phone to Chuljin. It seems that the driver is another middleman working under the last boss of the illegal gambling ring. This scene shows that Chuljin may be involved in online gambling crimes. That night, Dongman is printing the final exam paper when Sun-ho comes to see him. Dongman thinks about investigating how far Chuljin is involved in this case and what kind of person can control the police like Chuljin. That night, Chuljin goes to the shooting range to meet a mysterious man. It seems that the man is the boss behind this online gambling case. The man shoots a photo containing a picture of Chuljin and Dongman when they just met. The next day, the exam paper leaked among the students, so Professor Sang-hak called Dongman. The professor asks Dongman if someone entered his room while printing the exam paper. Dongman reveals that it was Sun-ho. At the meeting center, Dongman returns to the room and opens the desk drawer, finding an envelope containing money. The detectives come and Dongman panics. He rushes to hide the envelope of money. They still manage to find the envelope containing money. Dongman prepares to be taken to the police station for further questioning on bribery charges. Dongman is interrogated at the police station. Suddenly, Captain Choi comes to see Dongman. Dongman talks to Captain Choi alone and says he knows the perpetrator. Captain Choi urges Dongman to tell him who the culprit is, but Dongman remains silent. Meanwhile, Jumuk, Byung-tae, and Kang-hee at the academy want to work with Sun-ho to find the culprit who made Dongman a suspect. They start investigating students who have yet to buy or borrow exam papers from anyone. Meanwhile, Sun-ho and Kang-hee try to check the CCTV footage by visiting the security room that manages the CCTV, but the security officers refuse. Because they can't get the CCTV footage that leads to the perpetrator, Sun-ho asked Professor Sang-hak to help access the CCTV. Sun-ho receives information from Byung-tae that in his investigation, Song-soo was the first person to get the exam paper from a mysterious man. Sun-ho was sure that the mysterious man is Chuljin, so he immediately met Chuljin. Sun-ho revealed that through Sun-soo's testimony, he saw someone in the printing room on the night the exam paper was leaked. Sun-ho and his team checked the CCTV video from Professor Sang-hak, but the video was dark, so it wasn't easy to get evidence and they recognized who the man was. Sun-ho adjusted the video's brightness, revealing that the person in the back window was Chuljin. The next day, news broke that the exam paper had been leaked from the police academy before the final exam. Sun-ho and his team took the evidence to the police station while listening to the news about the case in a taxi. At the police station, Dongman continued to be interrogated. Sun-ho and his friends arrived at the police station, but were surprised by Chuljin's presence, who entered the place. Chuljin admitted that he had leaked the exam paper. Dongman approached Chuljin and asked why he admitted his mistake. Chuljin told Dongman not to protect him anymore. During the interrogation, Chuljin asked the investigator to contact the team from Investigation 1 of the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency. However, when the investigation team showed Chuljin's mother and sister photos, he threatened Chuljin to keep quiet because this was an order from his superiors. Because of the test paper leak, Professor Sang-hak held an emergency meeting. At this moment, Sang-hak apologized, and because the atmosphere became tense, the meeting immediately ended. In class, Song-soo mocked Professor Dongman by saying that he had to take the exam before they were appointed as permanent teachers. Jungkook wondered who leaked the test paper. Song-soo said it was unnecessary because the most important thing was that Dongman was still teaching them, even though he was considered a cheater. Sun-ho stood up from his seat to get angry at Song-soo. But suddenly, Dongman came and asked who had reported the leak of the test paper. Dongman felt guilty because the rain was late, but he asked all the students not to hate the lesson just because of their professor, because it would only harm them. Dongman looked at the whiteboard, where he had planned the strategy in sequence. He realized that the wiretapping device found had a range of up to 3 kilometers, which meant that Go Dokba might be the culprit. Dongman visits Gossy Bear but only finds a notice stating that the bar will reopen when the police academy starts. Dongman sees an electricity bill of over 1.5 million won. This is where Dongman becomes suspicious because it doesn't match the size of Gossy Bear's building. Kang Yi visits her mother, Ojunja, and reveals that she knows her mother didn't lie in court. Kang Yi catches the perpetrator so her mother can leave before her graduation ceremony. Sunho thinks about what Dongman said about becoming assertive, so he gets excited about judo training. Kang Yi visits him at the judo training area and reveals she wants to help with the investigation too. Sunho was also surprised when Kang Yi says that she likes him. Dongman returned to the office after dinner. Then Sunho sent a video of the young man practicing judo. Sunho wrote that he wanted to help Dongman in this investigation. Dongman decided to do something. He deleted all the investigation journals he had written and started from the beginning. Detective Joe contacted Dongman to tell him about the electricity bill at Professor Go's shop, which needed to be corrected. It turned out that the very high electricity bill was due to the use of power for industrial purposes, indicating that the Gossy Bear building was used to mine PC runes or Bitcoin illegally. Dongman returned to Gossy Bear. He collected all the trash and brought it to the faculty room. Dongman put together the torn pieces of paper to find the conversation between Dongman and Sunho. It was revealed that Professor Go Dokba hacked their discussion and received a report from someone. The next day, Sunho saw something surprising on his laptop. He ran a program to check the owner of the wiretapping device and finally found the phone number and location after tracking. Meanwhile, Dongman immediately sent a resignation letter to Professor Shanghak. Sunho visits Dongman's office but finds out that Dongman has resigned and has left. Professor Shanghak hands Dongman's resignation letter back to Sunho and tells him to tell Dongman that his resignation will take a week. Sunho and his team decide to find Dongman's whereabouts after seeing the last point where the phone card was turned off in Changnimdong. They immediately head to the location and split up to find the target. Meanwhile, Go Dokba buys a SIM card, a fake passport, and dollars at a money changer. However, when he goes out, he meets Byeontae and Junuk, who recognize him. Of course, this makes Go Dokba panic. When Go Dokba wants to leave, Byeontae tells Junuk that Go Dokba is suspicious. Dongman comes to Changnimdong after doing his investigation on Go Dokba. There, he's surprised by the presence of Sunho and the others. They talk about the perpetrator, which leads to the memory of a conversation about a wiretapping device whose device is available within 3 kilometers, namely the location of the Gossy Bear building, and its owner is Professor Go Dokba. When the others get into the car, Dongman talks to Sunho. He questions Sunho's very risky courage. When he is about to leave, Sunho asks if Dongman thinks of himself as a partner. Dongman doesn't want to answer, so Sunho lifts and slams Dongman's body to show his professor that he has become stronger. Sunho puts Dongman's resignation letter beside him. Then he says that the resignation letter bothers him a lot. Now Sunho asks Dongman to follow his wishes. When he returns home, Dongman is greeted by Hiso and Haekpil. They want to know if Go Dokba is the perpetrator of online gambling. Dongman confirms the question. Haekpil asks if Dongman and their juniors come to that place to catch Go Dokba. Dongman confirms it again, making Professor Haekpil even angrier. Dongman teams up with Professor Hiso and Haekpil the next day to investigate online gambling crimes. Dongman says the team will be divided into 2 people. He and Sunho will investigate Go Dokba, while Kang Yi and Professor Hiso will uncover online gambling. Then Byeontae and Junuk join Haekpil's team to explore Changnimdong and find out who Go Dokba met yesterday. Next, they head to Gossy Bear and find a secret door leading to the basement, where traces of a hidden rune used by an illegal gambling group are found. Meanwhile, Haekpil and his team find a place to exchange money. There he meets a stranger. It turns out that it is where someone comes to get a passport and a fake STM card. Meanwhile, Kang Yi and Professor Hiso meet Kang Yi's mother to ask about online gambling, but Janja gets angry at the question and asks her to leave. Kang Yi says firmly that she wants to go after the illegal gambling gang to solve her mother's case. The team regroups at the fishing spot. They learn information from Haekpil about the fake passport that Go Dokba plans to use to escape. Kang Yi says that there is a VIP customer called Gambler from the illegal gambling site and says she has received an invitation to open the site tomorrow night. Sunho and Dongman work together to create a new program to find out the IP address to open the illegal gambling site. After several attempts, Sunho finally completes the program. When the system is run on the gambling site, the address of the gambling site is automatically detected. The next day, Dongman, Hiso, and Haekpil go to the illegal gambling group while Sunho and his team monitor with a laptop. But suddenly, the unlawful gambling club site has disappeared. Sunho says the data is being deleted, which differs from where their professor is going. Sunho contacts Dongman about the situation and reveals that the address seems to have been changed. Meanwhile, Go Dokbae plans to escape, but Dongman suddenly appears with handcuffs to arrest the man. Go Dokbae tries to escape, but Sunho is there to stop him. Go Dokbae tries to hit Sunho, but is stopped by Dongman. Until finally, Go Dokbae was paralyzed and handcuffed. Go Dokbae was considered to have violated the Electronic Financial Transactions Act, the Act on Concealment of Criminal Proceeds, the Telecommunications Industry Act, and the Information and Communications Network Industry Act. During the arrest, a mysterious man had a tattoo on his neck. He managed to escape from the online gambling place. When Sunho tried to chase him, Dongman and the others stopped him. Go Dokbae immediately used this moment to throw his cell phone into a pile of tires. Captain Choi and the team leader, Mr. Han, finally arrive at the scene. Captain Choi tells Dongman that Mr. Han helped him get the warrant, but Dongman is suspicious of the man. One day, Dongman drives Sunho home. Dongman says Sunho can't just arrest anyone running away from the scene. He asks Sunho to be extra careful. Because it could be hazardous, Sunho says that he's not afraid because he has Dongman as his partner. Finally, Dongman admits that Sunho is his partner. Inspector Joe tells Dongman about the man he missed at the scene. His name is Jang Jaekyu, and he has a criminal sentence for assault and murder. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Sunho is investigating Go Dokbae. During the investigation, Sunho sees a sticker on the table that says Tree Support Donation. Dongman enters the investigation room to ask where Go Dokbae put his phone, but the man consistently says he doesn't know about the phone. Dongman reads Go Dokbae's suspicious expression and throws bait so that he believes the man has hidden the evidence. Next, Dongman visits Professor Sanghak's lab. He thanked Professor Sanghak for returning his resignation letter and asked how he knew about the investigation into illegal gambling crimes with students. Professor Sanghak tells him he received a call from Hyepil before the arrest. When the semester changes, Sunho shares a room with Minkyu. This makes Sunho uncomfortable. At one point in the room, Sunho shakes hands with Minkyu and tells him to get along, but Minkyu says to protect Kangi and leaves. Nare, who likes Sunho, allies with Minkyu, try to end Kangi and Sunho's relationship. Nare starts her plan. She puts a bracelet gift from Minkyu on Kangi's desk. When the girl finds the gift on her desk, she becomes happy and thinks it is from Sunho. One time, Sunho meets Kangi, intending to give Kangi a gift, but only sees the bracelet on Kangi's wrist. Sunho is shocked and thinks Kangi has received a gift from Minkyu. As a result, Sunho hides the gift he will give, changes the topic, and then leaves. Dongman returns to where Go Dokbae was arrested and found a pile of tires. He throws the tires and finds Go Dokbae's cell phone stuck in the gap of the tire. Dongman picks it up and feels happy. Then Dongman comes to the main office and coincidentally sees Professor Hiso and team leader Han meeting secretly. Dongman checks the call history made to the same number on Go Dokbae's cell phone and presses the call button to that number, but the connection is dead. The next day, Dongman asks Professor Hiso if he saw someone who looked like her at the Seoul police station. Professor Hiso makes an excuse that a female inspector she knows got married and she goes to give her congratulatory money. Although the excuse sounds logical, Dongman still suspects Professor Hiso because she lied even though Dongman knew she was meeting with team leader Han. Meanwhile, Kangi talked to Minkyu and finally discovered that the bracelet was not from Sunho. Of course, this made Kangi angry. She meets Sunho and expresses anger because the young man did not tell her about the bracelet. Sunho apologized for not telling her because Sunho thought Kangi liked the bracelet. Then Sunho dared to give the red bracelet that Kangi liked. Although the bracelet looked simple, what Sunho knew was that the red bracelet protected them from bad luck and brought good luck. Elsewhere, Dongman met Chuljin and asked if Go Dokbae was the last perpetrator. Chuljin said that there was something he wanted to say for a long time, that the main perpetrator was at the police academy. Meanwhile, Sunho opened Messenger at the academy to send and receive messages with Dongman through Yoon's account. However, a stranger's ID appeared with the name Stranger, who spoke to Sunho. Stranger asked how a hacker could get to the police academy. This stranger then sent a file to Sunho in the form of a suspect interrogation report regarding the hacking of an illegal gambling site. Elsewhere, Dongman calls a strange number on Go Dokbae's cell phone, that the number he calls does not answer Dongman's call. The next day, Dongman looks for information about Inspector Lee Ju-won. On June 8, 2011, Lee Ju-won was stabbed to death by gang members during an arrest of a gangster. It turns out that the man operated a private gambling house in Suwon, so he dared to kill Lee Ju-won without hesitation. Sunho is worried about the threat from the stranger hacker, so he decides to delete the messenger account used by the hacker. Dongman visits Professor Hiso's laboratory the next day and invites her to eat. However, Hiso says she has an appointment and is going to Daejeon. Hiso then leaves the laboratory hurrying, and Dongman secretly follows Hiso's car from behind. Dongman realizes that Hiso is heading to a detention center in southeastern Seoul, where Go Dokbae is being held. During his surveillance, Dongman's car is hit by a passing truck, leaving him in critical condition. It seems that this was an intentional collision by the mysterious man. Dongman is taken to the hospital in critical condition. Sunho gets Dongman's belongings from the nurse. He opens Dongman's notebook, which contains his investigation so far. The next day, Sunho returns to the academy and tells the others that the incident Dongman experienced was a deliberate hit and run. Currently, Kang-yi is in the hospital and sees strange movements from a nurse. It turns out that it is Jack-yu. He came to inject medicine into Dongman. Kang-yi panics and immediately contacts Sunho. Elsewhere, team leader Han contacts Jack-yu and orders him to kill Sunho. When Jack-yu was at the computer rental place, suddenly, all the lights went off while he was alone. This man felt like he was being surrounded. It turned out that Sunho had hacked the place and controlled everything. This shows that he was watching the owner of the stranger account. Then Sunho asked Jack-yu to put down his cell phone. However, the man ran away. When the man managed to escape, he closed the door, making Inspector Joe and the police shout at Jack-yu to open the door. Jack-yu went through the door Sunho mentioned, but Sunho was waiting for him when he ran away and immediately caught him. Elsewhere, team leader Han visits Dongman in the hospital. The man deliberately shows himself as part of all these crimes. Unbeknownst to Han, Kang-yi hides in the next room and listens to Han's threats to Dongman, including that he will kill Sunho. After Han leaves, Dongman opens his eyes. It turns out that Dongman has heard everything team leader Han said, and he had only pretended to be unconscious. Sunho catches Jack-yu and asks who is involved in the illegal gambling group. Jack-yu tells Sunho that he will not be able to see the mastermind of this case because there is no evidence. However, Sunho says he will imprison Jack-yu first. Then Jack-yu gives an access card that leads to a ledger containing information on the people involved in the illegal gambling group. The book is in one of the rooms at the police university. Jack-yu gives Sunho the access card and then manages to leave. Next, Kang-yi asks Dongman why the documents left behind have Dongman and Sunho's names and why he is their main target now. Dongman admitted that when he was in high school, Sunho committed a crime, stealing money from an online gambling site to treat his father. At that time, Dongman let Sunho go free. If this were known, it would ruin Sunho's career, and they might be expelled from the police university. A few moments later, Sunho came to Dongman's room and told him that Jaek-yu had threatened him through the dark net, so he had followed in all this time. Sunho also mentioned that Jaek-yu gave him an access card that led to a ledger that might lead them to the mastermind of online gambling criminals. He wanted to find the real culprit who ran the illegal gambling gang among the three professors, Professor Sang-hak, Professor Hiso, and Professor Hyepo. When he came out of Dongman's room, Sunho was already awaited by his friends. When they heard that the mastermind of this online gambling case was one of the professors, they wanted to help Sunho. But Kang-yi reminded them that this mission was dangerous. Kang-yi wanted them not to get involved in this case. At the university, Professor Baek gave strict rules. There would be a warning to come in and out with permission, especially at night. The biggest threat was that they would be expelled if they broke the rules. Later, Kang-yi talked to Sunho. Kang-yi asked the young man to stop looking for the mastermind behind this case because the consequences were too high. If Sunho had been determined, he might not have been able to become a police officer. But Sunho remained silent, so Kang-yi took off the red bracelet and gave it to Sunho. According to Kang-yi, Sunho needed the bracelet more than she did. Meanwhile, Dongman asks a reporter close to him to help him at the hospital. The reporter agrees, so Dongman shows the illegal gambling group's bank book. He says that 80% of the profits are withdrawn every month. Then Dongman asks the reporter to monitor team leader Han. The reporter gets to work immediately and takes pictures of the meeting between team leader Han and Jaek-yu. At night at the university, Byung-tae and Jung-uk sneak out of the dormitory, while Sunho turns off the CCTV after hacking the security system and causing a power outage. Byung-tae and Jung-uk arrive at the building where the ledger is believed to be located. They touch the card key port to open the door, but Minkyu, who is on night duty, appears there and catches them. Their captors hold a disciplinary committee because Jung-uk and Byung-tae went out at curfew without permission. The next day, Sunho again causes a power outage to enter the room. While the blackout continues, he enters and looks around to find the safe where the ledger is kept. Using the card given by Jaek-yu, Sunho opens the door and finds a room with furniture. He soon discovers the safe, but there is only a 30-second time limit for cracking the password card connected to the safe and the laptop. When the safe door opens, Jaek-yu is there to point a gun at Sunho's head. However, Kang Yi comes and gives Jae-kyu a taser attack, knocking him out. It is revealed that Kang Yi had planned all this to stop Sunho from getting into trouble. Knowing Sunho would not give up, Kang Yi asked Byung-tae and Jung-nuk to buy time by using their right to remain silent during the disciplinary committee hearing. They reveal to Kang Yi that they will help take care of the disciplinary committee while Kang Yi will help Sunho open the safe. In addition, Kang Yi informs Dongman over the phone about this plan. Meanwhile, team leader Han becomes anxious when Jae-kyu does not answer his phone. Suddenly, he receives a message from Dongman, a photo of when he and Jae-kyu met some time ago. Meanwhile, Sunho is surprised to find a photo of a suspicious tree-shaped symbol, so he puts the ledger in his bag and the tree picture. It turns out that the logo is identical to the tree logo on the gambling site, namely the Silkova Volunteer Group photo on August 27, 2016. In the photo, we saw Professor Go Dokbae, Chuljin, and surprisingly, Professor Hiso was in the photo. Next, the professors seem surprised by the appearance of Kang Yi and Sunho with Jae-kyu. At the university, Byung-tae and Jung-nuk were found to have committed violations related to discipline, so they got 100 violation points, while Sunho received an indefinite suspension. Kang Yi asked Sunho to stop causing harm to himself, but Sunho said he had to help Professor Dongman until he found the perpetrator. Sunho then visited Dongman at the hospital and told him what he saw in the ledger. In the book were the names of high-ranking officers who received bribes. Team leader Han received bribes in goods, but the amount had increased dramatically since 2 years ago. Dongman reveals that the Silkova Foundation was established to pay for the legal fees of police officers who were sued and also to pay for hospital bills when officers were injured. However, the foundation is a paper company used to bribe officers. Sunho asks why they use the foundation's name if they want to launder money or bribe. Dongman says that's different from what's important. Those people run an illegal gambling gang and their leader hasn't been caught yet. That's what's important. Dongman then asks how they use the accounts to withdraw money. Sunho replies that they keep changing names to avoid being caught like Kim Il-kyu and Lee Ju-won. Dongman recognizes Lee Ju-won as Professor Hiso's husband. As Sunho and Dongman go to the hospital lobby, Han, Inspector Joe, and 2 detectives approach them. The detectives arrest Dongman and Inspector Joe handcuffs Sunho's wrists. Sunho is considered to have committed an information and communication violation for helping Jae-kyu escape from the internet cafe. Sunho and Dongman sit side by side and are investigated by Inspector Joe. Inspector Joe says Sunho hacked the system and helped him escape from the PC room. Sunho reveals that meeting Dongman at that place reminded him of his illegal theft case. Sunho feels that Dongman has always stayed the same, but Dongman says that Sunho has changed. Dongman asks Sunho to stand tall and believe in himself. Inspector Joe talks to Sunho and gives the young man a ledger. Inspector Joe also lends Sunho his laptop. Dongman meets Hiso to ask if the woman is the mastermind behind the gambling gang. Because there is the name of her late husband, who was the perpetrator of the illegal gambling gang, Hiso reveals that it is circumstantial evidence. Hiso asks Dongman to listen and shows that the Silkova Support Group is an organization that helps the police. They provide support for incumbent police officers, funeral expenses for grieving family members, and other expenses that may arise even though the income is obtained through illegal gambling rings. Hiso also asks Dongman not only to judge something from the negative side, but to start assessing the whole case to see who the real mastermind is. After that, Inspector Joe tells Dongman that Sunho has found Jo Gile, the recipient of the most money. Then Inspector Joe sent Jo Gile's address to Dongman. Kang Yi came to the police station after getting permission from Professor Seo to go out. He talked to Sunho on the phone. Kang Yi said Sunho had promised not to cause trouble, but Sunho had already broken it in just 1 day. Kang Yi then expressed that her heart was racing like crazy, feeling like the time her mother was arrested. Furthermore, Kang Yi asked Sunho to end their relationship. Of course, this made Sunho feel sad. Dongman went to the location given by Inspector Joe. Upon arriving at the location, Dongman realized that it was the name of the factory, not a person's name. He then met an employee named Lee. Dongman asked about the foundation. Lee said that he didn't know much, but their leader was the manager of this factory, and he was on duty tonight. He'll be there in 30 minutes. Then Dongman met an employee named Yoon. Yoon also said that through the foundation, their products were distributed to police stations and they provided assistance to those in need. The foundation's sponsor association has been around for 5 to 6 years. Dongman checked the list of products sent to police officers in the form of protective equipment and found a familiar face in the Silkova Tree Foundation group photo. Dongman saw a picture of an employee named Lee there. He immediately caught Lee, who happened to be calling someone, and took his cell phone. It was revealed that it was a disposable number. Dongman showed the photo to Lee. The man said he only came once because he was invited. They reveal that a few years ago, the police approached him and asked about the Selkova Tree support group. He doesn't know of his name, but the person has thick double eyelids and looks like he's in his 50s. Dongman and Sunho meet Go Dokba and show him a Selkova Tree support group portrait. Dongman asks if Go Dokba has ever paid money to corrupt police while pretending to support the police. Go Dokba admits that one of the Foundation members once gave him information about them running illegal gambling. Dongman asks if Professor Sanghak told him to do it. This question immediately makes Go Dokba speechless. Meanwhile, Professor Sanghak asks the dean to revoke Sunho's punishment and submits a resignation letter to the dean. Elsewhere, Kangyu rushes to the front door to meet Takil, Sunho's father, who happens to be visiting. Kangyu lies to Takil that Sunho is not at school because he is taking investigative study training with Professor Dongman. Kangyu doesn't tell him the truth that Sunho is being punished. Takil says that he heard from Sunho that Kangyu likes peaches. He then gives the peach to Kangyu. Takil says that Sunho always talks about Kangyu when he calls him. Takil feels happy whenever the young man talks about Kangyu. Because of that, Sunho talks to Takil more. Professor Hayapul goes to Professor Sanghak's office and finds boxes, documents from the Selkova Tree Foundation support group, and a USB with handwritten on it. Professor Sanghak is on his way out of class when he receives a call that his son, Minwoo, has died. This makes Sanghak suddenly weak, prompting Dongman to rush to help him. At the funeral, Hiso and Baekho come to express their condolences, as do the police academy students. The professors learn that Minwoo left the police force and was injured 10 years ago while catching a criminal, which left him in a coma. At the same time, Hiso and Dongman talk in the car. Dongman asks Hiso when she discovers that Professor Siu Sanghak is the mastermind behind the online gambling case. Hiso reveals that when the external hard drive appeared in Go Dokbae's arrest, it was her husband's hard drive. Hiso also reveals that she met Han to recheck the evidence and wanted to know why her husband's belongings were in the illegal gambling gang. The Selkova Tree Foundation was initially started by Hiso's husband, Minwoo, and Minwoo's father, Professor Sanghak. However, it did not last long after the incident in the past. When Minwoo died and Minwoo was injured, Hiso heard from the hospital that her husband was there. Minwoo's mother was also there. The woman was angry because they wanted to save Go Dokba. Jinwoo died and Minwoo was in a coma. Dongman asks Hiso about the photo of the Selkova Tree Foundation support group. Hiso reveals that 5 years ago, Sanghak said he would hold another group to reform the Selkova Tree volunteers. Hiso came once but hasn't spoken to Professor Sanghak about the foundation since. Hiso asks Dongman if this case has been going on for 10 years, so Bessie thinks Sanghak made the wrong choice after seeing his son unconscious for a long time. Dongman says everyone goes through hard times, but that doesn't give you the right to commit such a crime. Dongman then meets Sanghak and brings him food, telling him to eat so he can have the energy to make a statement about who is involved in the crime that has happened. Dongman doesn't understand why Sanghak committed this crime and refuses to understand it. Dongman insists that using his power to commit a crime cannot be justified under the pretext of protecting the police. Dongman continues that because of the illegal gambling run by Sanghak, his fiancée Unju died while chasing an illicit gang gambling. Chuljin was fooled into thinking it was justice but ended up in prison. Go Dokba, who was previously imprisoned, didn't learn his lesson and decided to commit the crime again. In this case, Professor Sanghak created a corrupt figure as the head of Mr. Han. Professor Sanghak apologizes to Dongman, but the man says that Professor Sanghak doesn't need to apologize to him. He should apologize when he is tried by law in front of their students. Elsewhere, Chief Han tries to escape from Captain Choi and the other detectives. However, he feels pressured when Professor Hyokpil opens Sanghak's USB recording file. It is revealed that in the past, Chief Han met Professor Sanghak and asked for an additional 10 million won each month as hush money so that their illegal actions would not be exposed to the public. Unbeknownst to Han, this meeting was secretly recorded by Sanghak, and now the recording is with Hyokpil. Currently on the roof of the building, Professor Sanghak tries to end his own life, but Sunho is there. Sunho said, running away doesn't erase the sins committed. He asked Sanghak to prove that he could pay for his sins. Sunho then pulled him off the edge of the building. Not long after, Dongman considered Sanghak a coward who tried to escape without paying for his crimes. Dongman revealed that he used to admire Sanghak as a senior, but he didn't expect Professor Sanghak to change like this. Several suspects are then questioned regarding the illegal gambling ring. Meanwhile, Hyokpil takes Sanghak's position as the head professor at the university. Meanwhile, Sunho meets Kangyu, and they talk for a long time. Kangyu tells him that Sunho's father, Takil, came to school on the day he left. Kangyu also says everything was difficult after she broke up with Sunho. Sunho visits Dongman's room and hands over his resignation letter as a student. Sunho reveals to Dongman that he wants to stop running away from his worries about breaking into an illegal gambling site for his father's operation. Sunho also says that he will dream of becoming a police officer again the day he can stand up straight. The next day, Kangyi and Sunho go out together. Kangyi takes Sunho to the place she has visited every time her mother goes to prison. This is the place where she said goodbye to her mother and the place where she met again. This time, Kangyi goes with Sunho. Kangyi asks Sunho to come back and meet her at this place again. Before leaving the university, Sunho meets Minkyu and says they should remain friends when they meet again. Then Sunho left the bracelet he got from Kangyi on the table. Sunho walked to the front gate of the police station and recalled his memories. At that place, his father had been waiting for Sunho to go home with him. The night before Sunho left school, he set a trap in his way on an illegal gambling site. The next day, the news anchor reported an unprecedented hacking incident. The target was more than 1,000 illegal gambling sites with domestic servers. If a gambler accessed the site, the screen would freeze with a tree logo. Everyone who knew Sunho smiled when they heard this news because they realized that Sunho must have done this. Meanwhile, Sunho came to the police station to confess to having stolen money from a gambling site. Sunho brought a savings book with 12 million won in it and admitted that he had hacked 7 million won for his father's surgery and 5 million won for Sunboon to use so that he could go to college. That night, Detective Joe told Dongman that the returned money had been mixed with the income from the illegal gambling group and had been decided to be confiscated. Inspector Joe explains to Dongman that even though the investigation has been closed, he has told Sunho to use his mind. Sunho realizes that he must pay for his crimes, so he decides to support the creation of the tracking program by collecting data on how to run it. Meanwhile, Tackle hands Sunho a document from the police academy, a letter canceling his dropout. This letter allows Sunho to participate in the following year's student admissions. 2 years have passed, Choljin is released from prison, and Dongman comes to pick him up. The two of them then go to a restaurant. Dongman says that he has built a commercial building in front of the school and prepared a job for Choljin. He tells Choljin not to make any more mistakes, otherwise he will face the consequences. In 2023, during the college entrance ceremony, including Kangyi, who is now in her 3rd year, held an entrance ceremony at the police university. Hyapil mentions that he has started teaching. They are divided into 3 groups, and there is a surprise when in the last group, Sunho raises his hand to apply for the position of chairman. This surprises Kangyi and her friends. Kangyi's mother, who has been released after serving her sentence, comes to Choljin's shop and says she will work. Kangyi and Sunho meet at the place where they parted before. Sunho promises not to run away from the girl again. Although Kangyi encourages him to leave, they eventually reunite. Dongman returns as a detective and checks his laptop. He reconnects to the chat with Sunho, who uses the account Kang. Sunho says he was accepted into the police academy, which makes Dongman very happy. 2 years have passed and now it's 2025, the year of the police inspector's appointment ceremony or graduation. Janja comes to congratulate Kangyi and asks where her lover is. At that time, Sunho appears with a large bouquet. Dongman is also there to celebrate their graduation. Sunho tells Dongman that he is happy to graduate with his other friends and promises to graduate as Dongman's partner as a detective. Dongman says it would be better if Sunho graduated with the 16th police class. The story ends with a group photo. Sunho and Dongman join them, thus ending this drama.